You know, you ever feel like you're just wading through endless reports, endless articles, just wishing someone could, like, hand you the cheat sheet? The real core of what matters in project management, maybe organizational stuff.
Definitely. It's information overload sometimes.
That's exactly why we're doing this. We take this pile of material someone sends us and we try to, pull out the golden nuggets, the stuff that makes you go, ah,
Yeah, the actionable insights.
exactly. And today we're diving headfirst into this document. It's called The Effect of the Honey Badger Management Framework, HBMF, in Percentages on Project Management and Corporations.
Right, by Georgios Fradelos, dated February 25, 2025. And it's interesting because it's not just theory, it's got projections, numbers, evidence, all about this framework, aiming to really shake up how projects and companies are run.
Yeah, forget those super long planning meetings and, vague goals. This honey badger thing, HBMF, it promises something. Well, leaner, more agile.
That's the idea. Small teams, quick work bursts, maybe even a bit of friendly competition built in.
Okay, so our mission today is pretty clear. Unpack this honey badger framework. What is it? And crucially, what does this document project its impact will be on the stuff that matters? Timelines, budgets, quality, right down to the bottom line.
Let's do it. The document really starts by looking at the direct project management impacts first, the core metrics.
Okay, metric 1, project completion time. Simple enough, how long from start to finish? And the projection is what?
A 10 to 20% reduction, which is pretty significant.
10 to 20% faster. How? What's the mechanism there?
It really comes down to the structure. Emphasis on short sprints like focused one-week work blocks, maybe up to 3 times a month.
Okay, intense bursts.
Yeah, and combined with really rapid feedback loops. So you spot problems fast, adjust fast, less wasted time going down the wrong path.
Right. Instead of waiting months for a big review, you're course correcting almost constantly. The document mentions agile comparisons.
It does. It points out that standard agile projects often finish 20–30% faster already. It suggests Honey Badger, maybe because of its specific roles, might moderate that slightly, but still land in that solid 10–20% faster range.
Okay, faster completion. Makes sense. What about the money side? Budget adherence. Staying on budget.
The projection there is a 10 to 15% improvement. So more projects hitting their financial targets.
And how does Honey Badger pull that off, according to the document?
2 main things, it seems. Real-time dashboards giving managers constant visibility into spending.
Ah, transparency.
Exactly. And built-in manager oversight within the framework itself. Someone specifically tasked with keeping an eye on the finances.
I see. So it's not just hoping for the best.
No. And again, it connects this to existing data showing Agile improves cost predictability by 10–20%. The argument is Honey Badger-specific tracking and oversight layers on top of that, potentially making it even better.
Okay, faster, cheaper. What about better? Quality of deliverables. Fewer bugs, happier users.
That gets a pretty impressive projection. A 15 to 25% improvement in quality.
Wow.
You know.
Okay. How does that happen? Is it just working faster?
Not just that. It seems to be a 2-part strategy. First, mandated knowledge transfer sessions. Actively sharing what works, what doesn't.
Building collective smarts, basically.
Right. And second, this is interesting, the anticipated integration of AI assistants, using AI specifically to help catch errors, suggest improvements, boost quality.
AI as a quality checker.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there evidence backing this kind of jump?
Yeah. The document cites older work showing knowledge sharing itself can boost quality 15–30%, and more recent stuff suggesting AI integration really does add significant quality gains on top of that.
Makes sense. Okay, next metric. Team productivity. How much stuff the team actually gets done, right? Output per unit time.
Exactly. And here the projection is quite high, a 20–30% increase.
20 to 30% more productive. What drives that big a leap?
The document attributes a lot of it to the competitive spirit it aims to foster between the sub-teams, that Honey Badger tenacity idea.
A little bit of rivalry pushes people.
Apparently. That, plus the short cycles keeping momentum high. There's a small note, though. The time for those knowledge sessions might slightly offset the pure output gain, but the net effect is still projected as strongly positive.
Still a big jump. And the evidence cited.
It points to data showing agile teams are often around 25% more productive anyway. And it also references research on how competitive dynamics, tournaments basically, can increase output. It suggests Honey Badger intentionally taps into that.
Okay, interesting. Last one for project management. Stakeholder satisfaction. Keeping the clients, the bosses, everyone happy.
Projection here is a 10 to 20% increase in satisfaction scores or similar metrics.
And the key driver for that?
Seems to be the manager role again.
Mm.
Regular, proactive updates led by the manager, keeping everyone informed, managing expectations, addressing concerns early.
Fewer surprises, happier stakeholders. That tracks.
Yeah, and the document links this to findings that agile collaboration generally lifts satisfaction by 10–25% anyway, because of that transparency and involvement.
Okay, so that paints a clear picture at the project level. Faster, more budget-friendly, higher quality, more productive, happier stakeholders. Not bad.
Not bad at all if the projections hold.
But how does this scale up? How does fixing projects impact the whole company's performance?
That's the next big section in the document. It shifts focus to the broader corporate level KPIs, key performance indicators.
Right, the big picture stuff. Let's start with the one everyone watches. Overall profitability, bottom line, ROI.
The projection here is a 5 to 10% increase in profitability.
5 to 10% boost to the bottom line. How does that flow from the project improvement?
Well, partly it's just the cumulative effect, right?
Yeah.
Faster, better projects mean more revenue, lower costs. But there's another piece, the framework's built-in ESG focus.
Environmental social governance. How does that link to profit?
The document argues that strong ESG performance is increasingly attracting both customers and investors, which directly boosts revenue and potentially lowers capital costs. So it's a double whammy.
Interesting. ESG isn't just nice to have, it's part of the profit engine here. Evidence.
It cites a study suggesting agile firms see much higher growth, like 60% higher. But the document presents its 5–10% HBMF projection as a more conservative, specific estimate derived from that broader trend.
Got it. Okay, next corporate metric. Employee retention and satisfaction. Keeping your people happy and keeping them, period.
Projection here is a 10–15% improvement, so lower turnover, higher morale.
And the link back to the framework.
Again, those knowledge transfer sessions, people feel like they're learning and growing. And the guru role, which provides mentorship and support, it paints a picture of a more supportive, skills-focused environment.
Makes sense. Happy employees stick around. Data.
It references research showing that strong knowledge cultures do tend to cut turnover by 10–20%.
Okay, what about innovation rate? New products, new services, improvements.
A 15–25% increase projected here.
Driven by AI again.
Partly, yes. The AI insights are expected to spark ideas, but also that competitive team dynamic is seen as pushing creativity, trying new things to get an edge.
And the evidence for that innovation bump.
It cites research suggesting AI integration can boost innovation rates by around 20%.
Okay, market share. Getting a bigger slice of the industry pie.
A smaller but still significant 2–5% increase projected.
And that's linked to
Primarily, the better quality products coming out of the improved project process. And again, the ESG angle appealing to those socially conscious consumers and businesses.
that ESG factor really does weave through everything. Evidence for the market share gain.
Yeah, it points to a study finding that strong ESG focus can correlate with a 3–6% market share gain.
Right. Last one at the corporate level, ESG compliance scores themselves, those ratings from external agencies.
Here, the projection is a big one. 20–30% improvement.
Because it's baked in from the start.
Exactly. It's not an afterthought. ESG principles are supposed to be integrated into planning and execution through the framework structure. It forces the issue, basically.
And supporting evidence for that big ESG score jump?
It cites research suggesting that a structured, systematic approach to ESG typically lifts scores by 25–35%. So the projection is right in line with that.
Okay, so the framework promises benefits across the board, from individual projects right up to corporate profits and ESG ratings.
That's the picture painted in the document, yes.
Now, you mentioned the document breaks down profitability gains by company size. That sounds interesting. Does it hit startups differently than, say, huge multinationals?
It does, and the differences are quite telling. There's a table summarizing it.
Okay, let's look. Seed-level startups, whoa, 15–25% profitability increase projected. Series A, 20–30%. Series B, even higher, 25–35%. Why so high for the little guys?
The thinking is their inherent agility. Startups can pivot fast, implement something new like HBMF more easily, maybe. Less bureaucracy to fight through. The framework's flexibility just has a bigger percentage impact when the base is smaller and the organization is already nimble.
Easier to steer a speedboat than an oil tanker? Makes sense. Then it drops a bit for established companies. Small companies, 10–20%. Average size, 8–15%. Multinationals, 5–10%. And then the giants. US 500 companies, 3–7%. Top international firms, 2–5%. Those percentages seem smaller.
They are smaller percentages, yes.
Right.
But the key is the absolute benefit.
Right, because their baseline profits are massive.
Exactly. The document gives an example. A U.S. 500 company making, say, $5 billion in profit, that 3-7% boost translates to $150 million to $350 million extra profit per year.
Okay, that's serious money.
And for the very top global companies, that 2-5% could mean $1 billion to $2.5 billion. So the percentage is lower, but the scale makes the dollar impact potentially enormous.
Huge numbers. And the document actually names names, specific companies likely to benefit.
It does. It lists 50 companies, U.S. 500 and top international ones, that it identifies as particularly good candidates based on things like their need for innovation, their ESG focus, their scale.
Can you give us a few examples? Who's on the list?
Sure. You got the big tech players, obviously. Apple projected benefit $1.25 to $2.5 billion. Microsoft, similar range. Amazon, Alphabet, Google, Tesla, all looking at potential benefits in the hundreds of millions to over $1 billion range.
Wow.
But it's not just U.S. tech. You see Samsung, Toyota, Nestle on there.
Global spread.
Yeah, and Volkswagen from Germany, Sanofi from France, and pharmaceuticals. The benefits are still projected in the tens to hundreds of millions for them.
And how did they calculate these specific numbers? What's the methodology?
It seems they start with a rough baseline assumption, maybe 10% annual profit relative to market cap, something like that. Then they apply that projected 2-5% profitability boost from HPMF to that profit figure. They do mention adjusting for regional and industry factors, trying to be conservative.
So it's an estimation model, but grounded in the framework's projected impact and the company's scale.
Just slightly.
It's fascinating to see it broken down like that. But, okay, beyond the numbers, the document apparently digs into some deeper stuff too, like the why behind these projections, the behavioral side.
Exactly. It moves into what it calls sort of the underlying behavioral and systemic properties of the framework, why it might work so well.
Okay, like what her first one mentioned is behavioral amplifier. What's that about?
The idea is that HBMS is designed to amplify positive behaviors by mixing competition and cooperation.
How so?
The sub-team rivalry taps into intrinsic motivation, that drive to win, to do well, but then the knowledge transfer part forces cooperation and collective growth. So you get this blend, potentially creating a feedback loop where performance gains aren't just linear, they could even accelerate.
Harnessing both individual drive and team learning. Okay. Then there's ESG as a psychological anchor. How does that work?
It's about embedding ESG so deeply that it influences decisions almost automatically. It anchors choices in long-term value, countering the tendency to focus only on the short term, like a nudge, steering behavior towards sustainability without people consciously thinking about it all the time.
So it changes the default way of thinking.
That seems to be the argument, making sustainability the path of least resistance.
Interesting. Next one sounds cool. Honey badger as a fractal system. What on earth does that mean?
Yeah, that one's intriguing. It draws on fractal geometry, the idea of self-repeating patterns at different scales.
Like a fern leaf.
Kind of. The document suggests the HBMS structure sprints, teams, roles, repeats in similar ways, from the small project level up to the whole organization. This fractal nature might be why it's supposedly so scalable, working similarly in a tiny startup or a giant corporation. The core pattern holds.
Wow. Okay. A repeating pattern for management. That leads into the next one. Self-regulating cybernetic system. Sounds very technical.
It borrows from cybernetics, the study of control and communication in systems. The argument is HBMF has built-in feedback loops that make it self-correcting.
Like what loops?
The short sprints give constant feedback on progress. The dashboards allow real-time adjustments. The guru role ensures the process stays on track. It's like a thermostat, constantly sensing, adjusting, maintaining stability, and driving improvement.
And this self-regulation makes things more predictable.
That's the implication. It mentions Ashby's law, basically. A system needs enough internal complexity to deal with external complexity. Honey Badger's mix of AI and human oversight aims to provide that. And the frequent feedback, like in Agile, reduces failure rates. So potentially less variability in project outcomes, more reliable timelines.
Okay. Then there's amplification of organizational learning through a power law effect. That sounds like knowledge spreading like wildfire.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
The idea is that the structured knowledge sharing the sessions, the AI insights, might not just add knowledge linearly, it could follow a power law. Meaning, a few key insights or breakthroughs can have a disproportionately huge impact, accelerating future learning, like a rich get richer effect for knowledge. Early wins build momentum for even bigger wins later.
And the framework encourages this how?
Through the structured sharing, obviously, but also maybe the team structure itself, creating dense clusters of knowledge that can spread insights efficiently, like in small world networks. The potential long-term effect is a really significant boost in overall productivity as the collective intelligence grows exponentially.
That's a powerful idea. Finally, ESG integration as a behavioral commitment device. We touched on ESG anchoring things, but what's a commitment device?
It builds on the anchor idea. By embedding ESG and framing non-compliance as a potential loss fines, reputation damage, missed opportunities, it taps into loss aversion. People work harder to avoid a loss than to achieve an equivalent gain.
Prospect theory, right?
Exactly. So making ESG non-negotiable and framing it around avoiding downsides acts as a commitment device, making it harder for people or teams to backslide on sustainability goals. It locks in the desired behavior. The sprint reviews and gurus reinforce this commitment.
So it uses psychology to make the ESG focus stick.
That's the theory.
Mm-hmm.
And the potential payoff is even better ESG scores and maybe enhanced market share down the line as that commitment becomes evident externally.
Wow. Okay, this honey badger framework, it's definitely more than just a process chart. It sounds like this very intentional system trying to leverage psychology, systems thinking, learning theory.
Yeah, it seems engineered to optimize not just what gets done, but how people work together and learn and what values guide them. It's quite ambitious.
So let's try to wrap this up. This deep dive into the Fradelos document suggests the honey badger framework has some really significant projected benefits. Faster projects, better quality, tighter budgets.
Leading potentially to higher overall profitability, better employee retention, more innovation, and stronger ESG performance.
Right. But maybe the most intriguing part is how it supposedly achieves this through these deeper mechanisms, being a behavioral amplifier, an ESG anchor.
Functioning as a fractal, self-regulating system, driving power law learning, and acting as a commitment device. Those underlying properties are what could make it really potent if they play out as described.
It definitely positions itself as this highly optimized, maybe even holistic approach to modern management challenges.
It certainly seems designed to be versatile and tackle multiple issues simultaneously.
Okay, so maybe the final thought for you listening is this. Even if you're not about to implement the entire honey badger framework tomorrow,
Which is probably unlikely for most.
right, but think about the principles, short feedback loops, intentional knowledge sharing, using behavioral insights like nudges or framing, anchoring decisions in long-term values like ESG.
Where could you apply just one or two of those ideas in your own work or your team's work right now? What small changes inspired by these concepts might make a difference?
Something to chew on. Thanks for diving deep with us today.
My pleasure. Fascinating stuff.